All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. The Niners need a defensive coordinator, and there's just one guy out there that I think would be the perfect fit. We'll talk about that coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in both spots from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue you're going to find. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy, as well as Sharp Corner Sports Cards and Collectibles. Check them out at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California. Call Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264. We're also brought to you by ValleyHillRoofing.net, 209-481-6851. Their websites are linked in the description. And then, of course, Marin Autoglass. Don't forget MarinAutoglass.com, a proud sponsor of the Krug Show. All right, let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. They fired their defensive coordinator, despite the fact that they really looked good defensively in the Super Bowl and had a top 5 defense as far as points per game allowed, and were top 10 as far as yards allowed, total defense. But Steve Wilks and Kyle Shanahan didn't see eye to eye, and the Niners decided to move on. Really, after Wilks had that zero blitz at the end of the first half against Minnesota that allowed Jordan Addison to score a touchdown right before half, I don't think there was a lot of trust there between Wilks and Shanahan. I don't think Shanahan trusted his defensive coordinator. They weren't very good against the run this year. Their young linebackers didn't develop. Their young DBs only marginally developed. And ultimately, it didn't seem like the two sides saw eye to eye. Then you look at Wilks' career as a coach, and he's basically coached 25 years, and he's got like 20 different stops in 25 years. So, maybe he's the kind of guy that wears on you after a while. Maybe he has a hard time communicating. Maybe issues arise at these different spots. But that's a lot of different gigs, man. That's a lot of different coaching jobs. 20 coaching jobs in a 25-year run. That means you're just constantly moving from gig to gig. And some of them, I'm sure, where he was promoted. Others, maybe not. But I like Steve, and I think Steve's a smart guy. He's an intense guy, but I don't think there's any question that the defense backslid this year. Now, is it his fault? Probably not. I mean, you lost Emmanuel Mosley, Azeez Al-Shaair, not to mention Samson Ebukam, Charles Omenihu, Jimmy Ward. They've lost some good run defenders, and they replaced them with Javon Hargrave, but Hargrave's more of a pass rusher. So the Niners fell off against the run this year, and it was a noticeable difference. I mean, they really got gashed in the preseason. They only didn't get gashed in the run game when they got big leads and teams just stopped running on them. But for the most part, any team that wanted to run the ball against the 49ers had success this year, and so that doesn't show well on Wilks. All right, that's a big preamble. Who do you want to replace Wilks? I want Bill Belichick. Why not go for the top dog? He's one of the great defensive coaches of any era, and he's on the unemployment line. He's out of a gig. He's 71. He finally parted ways with the Patriots after 24 seasons, and in my mind, he'd be the perfect fit for the 49ers for a lot of reasons. Let's talk about the number of reasons why I think this would be a good fit. One, I think Belichick wants to get back to his core. I don't think he wants to go on television and be a smiley face guy and be a, hey, this and that. He's not going to do that. If he's going to do it, he's not going to be very good at it. He's a football coach, and at his core, he's a defensive coach, and at his true core, he might be the greatest defensive backfield coach the league's ever seen. So the Niners have 6 young DBs that they've invested in. Talanoa Hufanga, Jair Brown on the safety side. And then on the corner side, Demo Lenore, Ambry Thomas, Darrell Luter Jr., Samuel Womack. Heck, you could throw Mooney Ward in there. They got 6 or 7 really good young DBs that they, need to coach up, and they need to refine, and they need to get these guys out there playing. Now, Hufanga and Brown played. Lenore played. But Ambry Thomas, his playing time has kind of been in stops and starts. Darrell Luter never got on the field for the most part. Samuel Womack didn't either. He seemed like he regressed this year. And all these guys have talent. So I think Belichick, in a lot of ways, would be the perfect guy to develop these young DBs. This is what he's best at. He is, at his core, one of the great defensive backfield coaches in the history of the league. He's right there with Bud Carson, with Ray Rhodes, with George Seifert, with Dick LeBeau. I mean, you want to talk about the greatest defensive backfield coaches in the game. Belichick's right there. And not only is he great at coaching defensive backs, he's great at identifying good defensive back talent. So if you wanted to either go out in free agency and bring in Kyle Duggar, who he had in New England, that would be a nice piece to the puzzle. If you wanted to go into the draft and give Bill, some DBs to look at, I would definitely take his advice. Look what he got this year with Christian Gonzalez, Jack Jones. I mean, he's developed some good young players. Marcus Jones. He's had a good eye for defensive backfield talent, corner talent, safety talent. And the Niners, if they're really going to ever get great, they got to get their defensive backfield playing. And they got some good young players, but they're not all playing well. So now you're talking about going out and adding a guy who's got 8 Super Bowl wins as a head coach and as an assistant coach, 12 Super Bowl appearances. This guy's done it. I mean, nobody's resume is better. He's been coaching in the NFL since 5 years after he graduated high school in 1970. He started in 75 with the Baltimore Colts. And since then, he's coached every year, either with the Lions, the Broncos, the Giants, the Browns, the Pats, the Jets. He's been involved every single year. So what, he's going to not be involved in the NFL this year because the Patriots decided to let him go? This guy's an elite defensive backfield coach at his core. There is no salary cap for, there's a salary cap for everything in the NFL except for coaches. You can pay coaches anything you want. So if you really want to get an advantage on your opponent, the advantage that you can is by paying for top-tier coaches. Kyle Shanahan probably makes $14 million. I think Belichick was making like $25 million. You can give him a 2-year, $25 million contract and pay him $12.5 for the next 2 years. And he's getting another $25 million, and he's getting to do what he loves to do. I don't think he would do this for every team in the league, but the Niners are a unique story in that they're trying to climb the Super Bowl mountain, and they haven't been able to get over the hump. Then you look at a guy like Belichick, and you say, well, he's available. I mean, only the Atlanta Falcons were the only team that even interviewed him, and they went with Raheem Morris. He definitely hasn't lost it. New England was 7th in total defense this year. He's still very, very sharp. And then, a lot of people would say, well, it's not a real fit. Kyle's got a big ego. And then other people say, well, it's not a really good fit because Bill's got a big ego. I mean, that's why it is a good fit, because both these guys are going to have to check their ego at the door and decide for themselves what's more important. Getting together and winning a championship or maintaining their ego. And I think it's one of those equal deals for both. I mean, Kyle loses a lot of face by having to add a guy like Belichick to the mix. Belichick loses a lot of face working as a defensive coordinator in a league where he's arguably the greatest head coach. So both of them would be taking a huge ego hit to make this work. And that's why I think it works. And then you've got the fact that Kyle and John and Bill have a relationship. They hand-delivered Jimmy Garoppolo to the 49ers. Why? Because he likes Kyle. He likes John. They've got an admiration for one another. And then, the DeBartolos and the Krafts have a great relationship. I know when Eddie D was going to be in the Hall of Fame that year, the Niners played the Patriots, and Belichick was like, somebody please ask me about Eddie D at the presser. And somebody did, and he went and talked for like 10 minutes about Mr. DeBartolo and his respect for the 49ers and his respect for Eddie D. And, the Yorks and the Krafts and Belichick, they all get along really, really well. So obviously New England's not going to stand in his way. They've moved on to Mayo. They're going in a different direction. What Bill's not good at is talking to the media. He wouldn't have to do that as the defensive coordinator, or at least he wouldn't have to do as much of it. And he's also not great as a personnel evaluator across the board. And he doesn't have to do that role either. In this role, he can just go back to his basics of being a great defensive coach, really develop, 6 or 8 good young defensive backfield players. They already have 6 guys in their first, second, or third year who badly could use his instruction. He would make their players a whole lot better. He isn't wed to a particular scheme. He can run a 3-4, but there were times with the New York Giants where they ran a 4-3 or hybrid 3-4-4-3. So he's adaptable. And Shanahan said, "Hey, look, I'm adaptable." So if he came in and said, "Hey, I want to run a 3-4," they've got enough free agent defensive linemen right now where they could probably switch it up and run a 3-4. They could pretty much make this work any way they want it to work. They've got the money to do it. There is no cap in what you pay them. You can run whatever scheme you guys are all comfortable with. Would it be a big ego hit for Kyle? Yeah, but it would be an equal big ego hit for Bill. So that's their commitment to one another. Hey, I'll put my ego aside if you put your ego aside. I think it works. I don't think he's lost it. I think he would be an outstanding coach. I don't think there's a market for him. What if, that's the other thing. All these people are like, well, he could have any job that he wants. He only got one interview, and he may not get another job. And there may be teams out there that just think at 71, the league's passed him by and they want to go with a younger guy. So there's a chance that he stays out all this year and doesn't get any good offers or offers to his liking next year. So if you want to change the narrative on, man, you've lost it, go help the 49ers win a Super Bowl championship and get them over the top. And I think right there, that's the best thing he could do as far as if he really wanted to coach again as a head coach, is go win a championship, improving the Niner defense and helping them climb this hurdle, climb to the top of the mountain. So I understand there's lots of people that hear this and be like, oh, it's never going to happen. It's a pipe dream. Why would he do it? This and that. I think there's all kinds of reasons why he would do it. And I think there's all kinds of reasons why the Niners would want him to do it. And I like Vrabel. And I like, some of the other options that potentially could be out there. But I don't know that you're going to be able to get those guys. And I don't know that, they're all not as good as Bill Belichick at the end of the day. Is Vrabel a good coach? Yeah. But where do you learn his football? From Belichick, who learned it from Parcells. So, getting Vrabel is not a better move than getting Belichick. Getting Belichick is the ultimate move. And it would, he walks into the room day one and not one word is said about Steve Wilks. Not one word is said about should have had this guy, should have had that guy. That would shake up the football world in a huge, huge way. And yeah, Bill would have to take a ego hit, but so would Kyle. And I think they've got the money to do it. I think they've got the motivation to do it. I think the Niners now are at a point where they need a significant pivot off of losing this Super Bowl. I don't think you can just be like, well, we're just going to dig deep and try to do it again. I don't think you can go that route. I think you have to make some serious moves. Sometimes you have to make moves that make everybody uncomfortable. Sometimes being uncomfortable is the best way to get to that next level. Bill Belichick on this staff would be uncomfortable. Kyle Shanahan being the head coach and Bill Belichick being the defense coordinator, they would be uncomfortable to some degree. But I think it would also be wildly successful. And I think the players would buy in immediately. And I think it would vault the Niners over the top. So I'm all for it. I hope they get it done. It probably seems like a long shot to a lot of people, but to me it makes perfect sense. And it doesn't have to be forever. Give him a 2-year deal for $12.5 a year. He gets $25 million to come here in a 2-year experiment to see if it's worth it. And who knows? Maybe it all works out and they win a couple rings. I think it's worth the risk. I absolutely do. And I think it's a good idea. And if I ran the Niners, that's the guy that I'm calling. I'm not taking no for an answer. I'll make it all work. We'll make it work ego-wise. We'll make it work comfort-wise. We'll make it work money-wise. We'll make it work. There is no cap. We can pay you what we want. Money talks. And, the Niners could pay him more than most NFL head coaches make to be their defensive coordinator and be just perfectly fine for having done it. So that's the guy. That is the guy. Can they land him? Will they make an effort? I don't know. But that's the guy for sure. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to all of our sponsors. And, of course, thanks to you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.